Alright, guys, today we're going to do something interesting and I'm going to answer some of your community questions. But let's get into it. One user asks, when will vehicle skins and new maps come? Alright, to answer skins, one of the biggest reasons as to why vehicle skins have not been added is because of artistic limitations. I'm primarily a programmer. I'm not really a modeler. I don't really have a lot of experience there. And for that reason, I have not been able to really come up with the artwork necessary to create what I would like for the vehicles. I mean, I can do simple stuff like change their colors, but I guess I view that as a bit lazy. Maybe you guys can tell me if you think that's fine. Just having different color vehicles, like a different colored protector, or a different color guardian, or a different color mech, and maybe you guys think that's interesting enough. But in my head, it just I wanted to do more. I wanted to have like a rocket version of the protector, or like make that shoots a minigun instead of just the rockets, and I wanted to have them looking a bit different, and because I haven't been able to do that, I've just paused it. Regarding new maps are in development all the time. I have dozens of maps sitting on my computer. The thing is that I don't really launch a map until I think it's good enough, right? Yeah, that's one of the things, and it's really difficult to make a repulse map really play well because I have to account for the hardcore players, the movement, the grapple, the impulse, all the different equipment, the different game modes, the different amount of players. So I have to account for a lot of stuff. So oftentimes I might have an awesome idea for a map and I start working on it, but then when I start putting these elements in play, maybe it works well for these and not for those, and it becomes messy, and maybe I don't fully have the inspiration of how to finish it, and I end up moving on to another map. And what I do now is that sometimes I just work on the maps until it clicks. Sometimes it clicks. There's just this point where sometimes the map comes together and everything just seems to work. That's what happened to Grunge and the new map Fortress that I'm working on. But I do have other maps in the pipeline. But sometimes I have a great idea for a map, but it's like it doesn't come together quickly. It's like I put some of the map together really quickly, but then there are other areas of the map that the gameplay just feels wrong, and I tend to just pause. That's kind of happening with the large warfare map that I've been working on, that you guys have seen for how many months. It's like the base looks good, certain parts looks good, but while it might look good, it plays like crap, and until I can get it to play well, I don't launch it, because I guess in my head, if I launch a map that's bad, people may come to the game, play on that map, and think the entire that map represents the entire game. So maybe that's a limitation in my mindset, but I'm just telling you the reason behind why sometimes it seems to take so long with maps. It's because I try to cover a lot of different areas. New weapons. So someone asked, when are new weapons coming? Well, the bolt action rifle is supposed to be released very quickly. However, while that weapon is cool and all, it really doesn't represent the type of weapon that I really want to add to Repulse. I think Repulse basically has enough weapons in the core sandbox in terms of just pistols, SMG, shotgun, snipers, that stuff. And the reason for that might sound a bit limiting, but the reason why I do it that way is because I want Repulse to be a clear, not confusing game. I want for you to understand that when you see someone shooting an assault rifle, the assault rifle does this, and you can immediately calculate how to deal with them, right? If instead I make it so that there are 3-4 different assault rifles, it gets confusing for some players, because it's like you don't know what to expect, right? Because it's like, okay, I didn't know that assault rifle, I didn't know this rifle, I didn't know that thing. So the new weapons that I want to add, I don't want them to be reskins or just like different versions of already existing weapons. Instead, what I would like is that the weapons are different. So for example, I want to add weapons that can be utilized in different ways. So like energy weapons that may EMP the player, or may cut off the path, like do splash damage, or you can use the weapon to like just damage players in different ways to change the gameplay. Adding a different type of assault rifle, a different type of pistol, a different type of shotgun doesn't really change the gameplay. It might add some variety in a sense, but in my personal opinion, once you use those weapons for a few after a few matches they get boring because they're just reskins of other weapons, or they change slightly. However, if you get a kit where you have like a plasma shotgun where you can shoot the ground and it like leaves an effect on the ground that forces player to jump over this plasma because they don't want to take damage, or if you can shoot a gun that bounces a projectile around a wall or around a corner, or if you can say deny someone from entering an area by setting the ground on fire, or that's the type of variety, or even a laser beam that deals a lot of damage but requires precise aiming. Those are the type of weapons that I want to add, but sadly Repulse original version of Repulse is only designed to use hit scan weapons, and for those that don't understand, hit scan weapons are basically whatever you aim at, once you press the button, it hits it immediately. It's an instant hit. There is no delay, there's no travel time. That's how all the current Repulse weapons work, except the rocket launcher and the grenade launcher, right? But those shoot very slow projectiles, which really isn't suitable for stuff like, say, a plasma rifle that's shooting like really fast bullets, right? So I need to work on the technical systems to get those working, because Repulse wasn't designed with them in mind. And Repulse 2, or R2 as I tend to call it, is being created with this projectile system in mind from the beginning, right? So I can't promise when those types of unique weapons will come to R1, but it is in my pipeline to get it done. But for R2, it's been designed from the ground up with those types of weapons in mind. Okay, another person asked, when is the tank removed, or is it going to be added? Okay, I ran into some very interesting issues with the tank, and it seems that none of the maps are designed for a tank. It's just too big and clunky, and it's like, I tried messing around with it, but it just doesn't work on any of the maps right now. It's just too big. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna have to go with a different type of tank, like a light tank or something for Repulse, but currently it just doesn't work. The only map that could support it would be Coastal, potentially. Why haven't I finished the tank? Honestly, that's a good question. The tank is a bit closer to release. I think I can fine-tune that one and maybe even have it ready in the next update. But the reason I haven't released it is, one, to get it work on more maps, and two, just fine-tune it so that I remove a lot of the jankiness that you tend to see, right? But the tank is not that far from completion, so it should be in a update relatively soon. Just maybe not on as many maps as I would like. All right. Another person asks, why the Blood Mount map was removed. I removed Blood Mount because I thought the gameplay sucked. That's really it. It has some cool ideas, but ultimately I didn't think the gameplay was very good. It just felt like people just randomly walking around and just there was no flow. It was just random shooting. Now, mind you, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. My plans have always been to update it, fix the issues, and re-release it. So that's really it. I just haven't gotten to it. I don't know if people disagree with me and they think it's a good enough map. I'm sure maybe some people do. The thing is that you might say, well, if it might not be a big deal, right? Just let those who like it play it. That's not really what tends to happen when you have certain elements in the game. What tends to happen is that people leave. So while some people may like it, the ones that don't, once they see the map pop up, they just exit the game and they leave, right? And that's a bit of a problem, because I understand it, and maybe if I can get custom games working, it will be a beautiful place for it. I'm open to conversation regarding that though, but the main reason why it was removed is that I didn't like how it flowed and I had planned to remaster it. So moving on to our next set of questions. So someone asked, was Mind Jump an unintended bug? Actually, no, it was not unintended. All the physics reactions in Repulse are intended. I don't actively tell anyone about them, but I figure people will understand them and figure them out. So, for example, the fact that grenades push grenades, or grenades explosions push rockets, or explosions push vehicles, or that you can push things with the impulse, or no, that's intentional. I always liked the idea of a sandbox in which you could use the tools to on the battlefield to do different stuff. The idea that you can drive a vehicle over a lift and it flips out and does crazy stuff. I always like that idea. So no, it's not. Yeah, sorry about that one, but that one was intentional. I do feel like it could be balanced. So I will say, while it was intentional, how far it's being taken by players was that one wasn't. So people are doing a lot more with it than I expected. But I've always wanted them to use it to do stuff. It's part of the reason why sometimes simple stuff takes so long for reposts, because in for example, let's look at it this way. In some games, a jump pad is just okay. You create an object and it adds a force if the player steps on it. Oh no, that's not how repulse works. If I add a jump pad to repulse, I have to make sure that players can step on it and get pushed. Grenades, rockets, equipment, vehicles, right? So I have to factor in like what happens if someone throws a jump pad on a jump pad, what should happen. So it's like I'm factoring all of those stuff. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. Why can vehicles bypass the height cap for maps? That's issue. That shouldn't be okay. That's something I should resolve. No, let's move on to Eldest. Eldest, I'm sincerely sorry, man. I know you've been waiting for these esports servers for the longest time. I'm having massive issues regarding servers. The game just was not designed with custom servers in mind. It doesn't really support it. It's basically a feature I'd never thought about when I was coding the game. So in planning repos 2, I've taken that into account from the get-go. But for R1, it's a little bit more tricky. It requires a lot of time to really make sure that I can have a server separate up away from the rest of the game that has its own controls and mod tools. Okay, so the next question Eldest is asking is, what was the hardest repos feature to add? I would say, and this is sad because it's a feature that no one notices and no one probably cares for. So I'm going to answer this in two ways. The hardest technical feature to add was a system called addressables, which is basically used to load all the assets. Initially, when Repulse was built, the entire game had to load before it started, right? Which had extremely long wait times. But now I had to change it so that I loaded basically just in the main menu and just the basic stuff, and then all the maps and weapons and characters and skins and everything is downloaded on the fly. That was a pain to add, and it's so sad because after doing such updates, taking months, the players don't really care, but it's something that I need to do as a developer. And technical updates are the biggest pains because I hate technical updates because it's like I work 4 months and no one notices, and it often feels like I'm not doing anything, and that's a bit sad. But in terms of feature that you players would appreciate, I would say the most challenging feature to add in terms of that would actually be the clan and social systems, because it was just a lot of things to account for, and as you can see, it's still not completely perfect. There's a lot of issues there, but it was the most complicated issues to add because it required me learning a lot of new tools that I did not have any understanding of when I initially launched the game. And which update do I think made the game grow the most? Probably the helmets and progression. The whole idea of unlocking helmets and tying it to challenges, I think people really loved that, right? And I think that one was the one that pushed the game a bit, the new art for the load screen and that stuff. I think people really appreciated that. All right. Were the, Fonara asks, were the bullet in the combat rifle meant to be slow? I'm not sure what you mean. The combat rifle is hit scan, which means that whatever you aim at should hit immediately. I don't know if you're experiencing a bit of lag, but the combat rifle is hit scan. Alright, fine. So are there any more gameplay such technical questions? Okay. Someone asked about the mech reload time. I want to apologize for that. The mech reloading mechanism sucks because you don't know when it's reloading. There should be HUD stuff regarding that. I don't have anybody to do HUD related art, so it's like maybe I care too much about how it looks, but it's like I wanted to just do it properly instead of just shoving some random text. Oh, that said, oh, reloading. But maybe I should just do that. Egoose, I guess, asked why the height cap on grunge so high. I should probably look at that. That's not necessarily intentional. Let's see. Finally, there is the when will the mobile update come? Mobile update is a constant work in progress. The biggest annoyance for me and mobile is deciding whether or not it should support auto shoot, which seems to be a standard for mobile game, but I'm wary about the idea of you randomly getting a headshot because you accidentally looked across someone's head and the weapon decided to shoot due to auto shoot. That's been it might not sound like a big deal, but that's a thing that I've been wondering, like, is it a smart thing to do for Repulse? But I'm thinking I've decided that I'm going to do it now, so I have been leaning towards finishing up the mobile version. The controls work, the performance is pretty decent. The balancing is a bit wonky, so I've kind of been decided to maybe not do hardcore for mobile, because I think hardcore is so fast paced and difficult that I think mobile players will just get destroyed. I could be wrong and someone can tell me if I'm wrong, but I've kind of been deciding that okay, maybe on mobile I should just let you be able to play Warfare, right? That way you have more time to engage with other players versus the madness taking place in hardcore, right? So hopefully that answers that. So now I'm going to answer some more questions regarding Repulse's future. So A Man Loves Cat asks, where do you see Repulse in the near future or in a year? Right, would you have more people for help, or would it be a job or passion project and hobby? Repulse is a bit more than a hobby at this point. It is a passion project. It's something that I focus on primarily to some degree, even though it might not look that way sometimes due to the delay in updates. But there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes regarding Repulse's future. So anyways, to go toward answering where do I see Repulse in the near future, I don't want to talk as if I want Repulse to be the next big thing. And that's not because I don't want it to be, but it's because I don't even want to design the game from the perspective of thinking about other games. I want Repulse to be its own unique ecosystem with its own unique players and I mean, obviously I'd be incredibly humbled and passionate. I'd just be ecstatic if I heard that the game became the next big thing, but that's not really the goal right now. I would love for it to garner just the reputation of being a solid, balanced, clean, jank-free first-person shooter with really solid mechanics, right? I want it to work the way I want it to work. I want people to be able to appreciate the gameplay. But in terms of the future of it, in terms of plans, there's a lot being done there. On my end, I'm focusing a lot on stuff like netcode and rewriting the game from scratch to be a more solid experience. I would love to get to the point where I can see the community being able to host custom games and creating their own games and watching replays and just having a universe within the game as its own ecosystem with co-op modes and maybe story mode and that stuff. I want it to be its own universe. That's really what I basically, it's only to franchise in a sense, but that requires a lot of work on my end, and it does mean I may have to restart the system, such as netcode and the backend tools and how the clan system works, and just start over to really do it properly, even if it might sadly take some time, but for it to grow to be the game that it needs to be, it does need a strong foundation, which the foundation that it has now is a bit rocky. I'm extremely grateful for the growth and reputation that Repulse has gained, but the foundations for the game are pretty bad. They weren't really designed to handle the amount of requests and pressure that current Repulse requires, so I do have to redo them. That question, I think that may have Black Hole was had asked what are my what long-term features would I like to add, what visions plan do I have for the game. I think I just answered that one. So if long-term features would be stuff like a proper tournament mode in the game, custom games, where you can host your own games and change the rules, low gravity, double speed, more damage, less damage, create your own game modes, a map editor. Those are my most passionate features, but I really do need to secure the tools for it, the back end stuff, the boring stuff that you guys don't see, sadly. Let's see. Why the game called Repulse? Honestly, for me, naming a game is about the feel. It doesn't really have to mean much. It's just what the name feels like to me. And Repulse just felt right. It doesn't really stand for anything per se, if I'm being completely honest, other than the idea of the gameplay, in fact that you can push things, and this one story concept that I have had, which is a bit interesting in my eyes, which the idea of Repulse being the resurrection of a human to the digital reality. So for example, the idea of Repulse was like a pulse, was to give rebirth, basically. So the idea of Repulse was that a soldier would die, and if they were of a certain caliber, they would be given a chance to be digitally uploaded to an interface that could interface with the armor, and that concept was called the Repulse effect. But again, it's not really why I gave it the name. It's just a cool thing that I came up with after the name. The name just felt right after I ran through a bunch of different ideas. What made me use Unity to create Repulse? Unity, because Unity is a very diverse engine. It allows for a lot. And while Unity might get a lot of rap because some of the games don't look great, or people use them to do a lot of garbage or junk, honestly, the engine is capable of great things. It's just the developer that matters. Like Repulse itself even could look a lot better if I have the resources. So I use Unity because it can get the job done. It runs well in the browser. And while there are other browser engines that may be faster or run faster or whatever, they may not necessarily allow for the level of complexity that I needed in Repulse. The physics and all of that stuff. I think a lot of people have said that Repulse doesn't really feel like a browser game, and I needed an engine that was capable of doing that. Something like Unreal is just way too heavy for the browser, so nor do I have the experience for it, or think it's a great engine for beginners. What made me decide to create Repulse? Alright, I'm gonna combine that question. So same one more asked what made me decide to create Repulse, but someone else has asked, many people, Aman Loves Cat has said, Repulse seems to be based off Halo. Is it really so? Or did it just become like it based off building the game and it's just a coincidence? Okay, so I'll combine those two questions. Growing up, I played a lot of GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Halo. Those were I was really passionate about those games, especially like Halo and Perfect Dark. Funnily enough, I do feel like Halo took a lot of its ideas from Perfect Dark. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I do see a lot of similarities between the games. And Repulse is just me taking inspiration from all of those games just the same. So I would say yes, Halo is a heavy inspiration for Repulse, but I never really set out to make Halo. I just wanted to build my version of a sandbox that played in one of the things that I didn't like about Halo is that I wasn't very fond of the weapons. They didn't feel very solid to me. I wanted to see if I could do something that felt a little bit more, well, heavy. The weapons feel a little bit more hardcore. The combat feel a little bit more cinematic. Halo does feel a little slow, and it's a really good game, but in Repulse I kind of wanted to see players doing what they're doing now. Like, people do some really ridiculous stuff in Repulse now. I see guys just like sprinting and, you know, dropping a mine and shooting it, jumping off it and flying in the distance, then grappling to somewhere. Or I see guys like impulsing a vehicle into someone else. Like, I wanted to mess with the sandbox a bit more than I thought in Halo. I wanted to see the vehicles doing interesting stuff, and honestly, Repulse, really, the current state of Repulse doesn't represent what I want for the game. But I'm really technically limited by the networking tools and just the code that I had written, because let's be honest, when I made the original Repulse, I wasn't as good a programmer as I am now, which is why I'm leaning towards rewriting it with my new and updated skills, right? Because I'm able to cover more ground. And sometimes it's easier to start over than to try to force your way into fixing something and you end up breaking stuff. So, to ask what made me decide to create Repulse, it was just a passion of mine. I love first-person shooters. I love the idea of a community of people who just love a game, and they're just a tight-knit community that they play, and they have beefs within the community, and you have people who are trying to outplay each other and prove themselves and get better. And really what I kind of have now, which is why it saddens me to know that I'm not able to support the game the way that I would like. But I have been working on solutions to that. I have other projects that I'm working on too, that their main reasons to help create finances, give me better finances and a budget so that I can use that to hire people or whatever to help with the development. Because while I see that a lot of people in the community are passionate about helping with Repulse development, a lot of you guys are young, and what is required to be done, a lot of you guys, or a lot of the guys that want to contribute, may not fully understand how to contribute yet. So I still have to do that myself, right? So I do have systems in place, and I am working on things that should allow me to invest into Repulse's future. Alright, now the last thing I want to add, and this isn't really a question, it's just Repulse 2, R2, what's going on for that? So R2 is being developed right now. A lot of time was spent deciding on the networking engine because we want to be able to support more players. We want to be able to have up to 30 players in a match. Now, we may not actually use 30 players, but we want to be able to support it. Right? We needed a networking tool that would allow us to do bots and do AI and support maybe 50 to 60, 70 different objects on the map, right? A networking tool that can support vehicles and all of that stuff. And not only that, we want to think about performance from early on. So, and oh my god, hit detection was something that we spent a lot of time to make sure that we're not creating bad hit detection. So we've been evaluating the networking tool, and we've actually decided on one that we're gonna work with. So we have moved on to the next phase now, which is we're gonna start prototyping the movement and moving around and seeing if we can get the basics to start feeling right. And once we have something for that, we will push an alpha. I can't promise everybody will make it into the alpha, but the point of the alpha will be for those users who understand the work in progress game and won't be looking at it like, oh my god, this game needs more. They'll be able to access an alpha where they can test things like movement and the hit detection. Maybe I think most likely what I'll do is maybe like recreate one of the hardcore maps in a very basic state, and maybe one or two weapons, and have people just play and see how it feels, right? But Repulse 2 will basically be Repulse 1 remastered in a sense, hence the code name R2. So what I'm looking for with R2 is that I'm looking to make the vehicles less janky, make the weapons less janky, fix the reload animations, make the animations better. Everything will be revised. Every part of the game will be revised. We'll try to keep all the best parts and make what we can make better. So for example, let's use even something as simple as a map. We may take a map like say Outlook and rebuild it in a way where the bad areas feel a bit better. So for example, we know that the section next to the lift at the top of Outlook where the control point typically goes is probably way too small sometimes. So yeah, that's really it. I did enjoy doing this, so I look forward to doing more of these. I think it's a very interesting way for me to give you guys the answers that you're looking for. And again, I am sorry for the delay in the updates. It's just that I am working on things that I have to focus more on the future of Repulse, even if that means that the now is a bit boring. So I apologize for that, but the hope here is that maybe in a few months everyone will understand exactly why I had to focus on the behind the scenes stuff for Repulse so that we can have a stronger future. Anyways, special thanks to Caracal for hosting this. It was fun, and I look forward to the next one, and thanks for playing. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. I appreciate the mods. I know that there is sometimes some dispute in the community, but I appreciate that you guys are there and that you guys support Repulse. And I really do hope R2, I am confident that it will, but I really do hope R2 hits well to the point where it's a solid experience that I can even look at porting it to PC and have a solid contender. Especially the fact that we're even redoing all the art, and I can't wait to show the new art. It's gonna be cool to see Repulse's assets, look being modeled and look good in a way that isn't me cobbling them together, right? But anyways, guys, I'm gonna get back to work, and thanks for taking the time for those of you who listen this long. Docski, and I'm out.